Hey guys, it's Kevin again. This is my review for The Strain, Season 1, Episode 2. What is this episode? I don't know what this episode was called. This episode was called, The Box. And this episode, for me, I really loved last week's episode. This episode was still very good, but it was not as good as the first episode. I thought the first episode was a lot darker in tone. But one of the things I did really like about this episode is they really showed that this show is not just a show that's meant to scare you. It's meant to be a show that actually has a story, has a good story, and that's one of the things I really liked about this episode. A lot of the episode, we focused on only, one character, and I thought that was definitely very interesting. And I really loved that about this episode. I thought that was absolutely fantastic, and I'm really looking forward to the next episode to see how, it all works. So a lot of shit went down this episode. So let's just get to it. So basically, we start off with seeing the police are investigating the murder of Peter Bishop, and do not even get me started with that murder. That murder was traumatizing, really it was. That thing scared the shit out of me. They arrive on the scene, and the victim head has been crushed, as we know, and while they are investigating the crime scene, sorry, my eyes are, all itchy, I don't know why. Okay. Ephraim then gets a call that the 4 survivors are being released by the hospital. Ephraim then rushes to the hospital and tells them they are under quarantine and under no circumstances can leave the hospital. And I thought that was definitely really big right there. So Abraham's lawyer then arrives at the prison to see him, and he is shocked when he heads to the visitor station and comes face to face with Thomas Eichorst. He mocks Abraham and asks him if he still believes in his God, and asks him about the antique sword that was mentioned in his police report. Eichorst brings about killing a woman who apparently meant a lot to Abraham back in the day. Abraham then reminds him that he actually killed his partner with a sword, and he'll make sure that he kills Eichorst as well, because, Eichorst is getting on his nerves. So basically, so that was definitely very interesting. So Gus returns home, and his brother is watching the news about the airplane with the stiffs on, and his mother interrupts their arguing and invites Gus to come to mass with her. He turns her down, and she shows Gus an old clock that his brother bought for her, and he says he got it at a flea market. And after their mom leaves, Gus freaks out on his brother and asks him where he got the clock. He tells him not to bring stolen shit into their house. So then Ephraim and Nora, they meet with Margaret Pearsons, the head of Health and Human Services. She informs them that the plane is not a CDC case anymore, and the passengers died of a faulty air system. And Ephraim argues with her that the patients clearly died of a venereal disease. Basically, Margaret does not want to hear it. If they put New York under quarantine, it will stop all imports and exports and crash the economy. Margaret says Ephraim and Nora home and tells them they are off the case. And Ephraim and Nora head to a bar and meet with the pilot of the plane, and he says he's feeling a little sick and has a buzzing in his ears. And they ask about the crate that is missing from the plane. And he said, we hear that weird buzzing noise that always hurts my ears whenever they play it. And he says that government officials showed up at the last minute in suits and badges and put the cargo on the plane. He didn't question it because they seem legit, and Ephraim tells the pilot to go to the hospital and ask for Dr. Lester, and he will be able to diagnose what disease he has contracted. So basically, Ephraim and Nora then head back to their quarantine lab because they're still going to quarantine it, even though they said not to. Ephraim has learned that every time they give the worm a little bit of blood, it reacts and becomes more lively. He then receives a text from his son, Zach, and remembers, and I thought this was definitely very interesting, he remembers that he is supposed to, basically meet up with him, and Nora tells him to go, because, he still has that bond with his son. He still does have that bond with his son, and he really does care about his son. That's one of the things I really liked, is, seeing that bond between him and his son. That was definitely one of the best parts here. I really enjoyed seeing that here. So, basically, he does this, she told him to go so that his ex-wife, Kelly, can't use it against him later at the custody hearing. So Facility Fetz, a member of Pest Control, heads into a restaurant and inspects the kitchen, and the chief tries to pay him off, but he brushes his bribery off. he finds traces of rat urine underneath the cupboard and a rat inside a cabinet, and he tells the chief to shut his restaurant down, heads out into the dining area, and shows the patrons the rat he just found. They run out the door squealing. Ironically, the survivors of the plane are actually eating at the restaurant with the other guests, and they're experiencing strange symptoms like buzzing in the ears and bloody gums and really weird shit. So Gabriel, one of the survivors of the planes, heads home to his penthouse to have a threesome with two random groups, and his night turns seriously weird when he actually bites one of the girls in the neck and she begins bleeding everywhere. The girls run out while screaming he is a freak, but he doesn't seem to mind. He drops to the floor, starts licking up drops of blood that the girl dropped when she ran out on him, so obviously he's not normal. So Nora and Ephraim then head to the hospital where they sent the airplane pilot, and they check in on him, realize his condition is worsened. And after checking him with a UV light, they realize his entire body is covered with tiny worms crawling under his skin. Ephraim then rushes out to call Dr.Benett on the morgue and see if he has any test results on the dead passengers. His phone rings off the hook, and Nora and Ephraim head to the morgue to see why Dr.Benett isn't answering their calls. The results from the bodies they send him. En route to the morgue, Ephraim receives a call from Gary, who is Emma's father. Gary apologizes for the way he behaved and thanks him for sending Emma home, and Ephraim's confused because Emma is dead, and Gary says that she showed up on his doorstep alive and well a few hours ago. Now, as we know, Emma's possessed, so it's not going to end up well for him. So Ephraim tells Nora there's no way that Emma can be alive. He thinks Gary's seeing ghosts, and we know that she is alive. And basically, the end of the and basically what ends up happening next is that Ephraim and Nora. So yeah, they're trying to figure out, what exactly was going on there. I thought that was, very interesting what happened. And basically what ends up happening is Nora and Ephraim head to the morgue and see why Dr.Benett isn't answering their calls. And the results from the bodies they sent him en route to the morgue, Ephraim receives a call from Gary, who is Emma's father. I just said this. So Ephraim and Nora arrive at the office of the medical examiner, and the phones are ringing off the hooks. They head into the morgue and find a room full of empty bags, and Dr.Benett is nowhere in sight. Gary then heads into the bathroom to get Emma, and then basically they don't know where Dr.Benett went, because Dr.Benett just disappeared. So where did Dr.Benett go? We don't know. We'll have to see in the next episode. So Gary heads into the bathroom and get Emma out of the bathtub. He invites her to come eat dinner and listen to the Lion King soundtrack with him, and she says she's very hungry, and basically, we know that something weird's gonna happen because they're playing, happy music. She then latches onto her dad's neck and kills him, and we get probably the scariest scene in the entire show. That scene was fucking creepy. And that's how the show ends. Now, I know it didn't seem like much happened this episode, and honestly, it was a pretty short episode. The episode went by like that, and that's a good thing. I do have a couple of things about this episode that I didn't like. I wish we could have seen a little bit more with the creatures. I did like that we got more of Ephraim's, Ephraim's story in this episode. I thought that was definitely interesting. We found a little bit more about him. I thought that was definitely very interesting. Now, what exactly happened with Dr.Benett? We'll have to see what happened there. We don't know what happened with him, and we'll have to see what happens. What's happening with Gabriel? Gabriel obviously is not normal. There's something up with him. All we know is that he's not normal. We can kind of tell he's not normal, definitely. Now, my only complaint with this episode... Okay, my only complaint. Here's my complaint with this episode. Every character got, one scene, and we didn't see them after that. That's my only... Except for Ephraim and Nora, because they're the main characters. But other than them, every other character got one scene, and we didn't see them after that. And I thought that was kind of interesting, the way that was done. But I would have wanted to see a little bit more in this episode. This episode was pretty short, and I wish it was a little bit longer. So, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next, with, especially with, Abraham and Eichorst. I don't know what's going to happen there with them. We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens with, Ephraim and Nora as well. It's going to be interesting to see what happens there. And also, as far as those passengers go, why are they having, these strange symptoms? What is this about? We don't know. Definitely, that's definitely interesting. So yeah, I'm really enjoying the show. I think the show is very good. This episode is not perfect in any way. It was not perfect. I did enjoy this episode. I did think it was a good episode. I definitely think this was a good episode, and I really did enjoy this episode. But that's it for my review. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be... I know this was a short review. I didn't expect it to be so short, but there wasn't too much happening in this episode. So, yeah. But the next review will be for the leftover, so I'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.